Hi guys, Tracy here. I'm going to talk to you guys about Snapseed today, and I think I'm going to just talk about Snapseed overall today and talk about some of the basic edits that I do using Snapseed first today, and then maybe coming up in some subsequent videos I might talk about how I do specific photos in Snapseed. So Snapseed is a photo editing app that you can get for your phone. It's actually made by Google and it is free for Android or iPhones. So the reason I decided to do this video about Snapseed is that I don't take the greatest photos, and sometimes people ask me, how do you take great photos? And the answer is I really don't. This is a typical photo that I took yesterday, and you see how you can barely see those kids, and the water reflecting off the light reflecting off the water kind of really dominates this, and then everybody becomes a silhouette, and it's just not all that nice. And so I wanted to be able to rescue this photo because I was looking for a certain feel. Like I kind of ran out and grabbed a couple of photos of them swimming right as the sun was setting or just before the sun was setting, and it was all in real life. It was really golden and shiny and beautiful, and then I took the picture and I got this. And so I wanted to recreate what I was actually seeing, and I just did this layout that uses this photo and the next photo that I'm going to show you, and this is how it changes from, and my phone is on its brightest setting, so this is what this photo actually looked like, and then this is what I changed it to. And then so see the difference? It started like that and then it ended like that, and then this photo started like this and ended like that. And so I wanted to make the two of them match, and I wanted it to look like it was sundown because it was, like the sun was setting. And so I used a vintage filter to do that. I got another sunset. This one was a little bit more complicated to do. But I wanted to show you some of the basic edits that I do using Snapseed, and then I'll probably do a couple of follow-up videos where I show you a couple of other things that I do with Snapseed. So I have a couple of examples here. This one, and actually these three examples right here are pretty basic, and this one I had a little bit more fun with and really played with quite a lot. So I'll show you. This is the before photo. It's still quite a nice photo, but this is the after photo, and this one uses HDRscape and a couple of other tweaks. This is the before photo, and then this is the after photo, and this uses the Glamour Glow filter. This is the before photo, and this is the after photo. It just bumps up the color saturation a little bit. And then this one is the one that I really played a lot with. This is actually not the before photo. This is an in-between photo. It was quite a bit darker than this, and then this is the finished product. So I'm going to set up my phone here and show you Snapseed and show you how it works. And today I'm just going to talk about my basic edits that I do with almost all of my photos. So I go into photography, and the Snapseed app looks like this. It's this white one with a leaf. I'll show it to you up close. It's this one right here by my thumb. So I'm just going to open it up. And it starts with my last photo that I played with in there. And so in order to start a new one, I'm going to press open, and it just asks me, it's just warning me that I'm going to lose my work if I don't save it, but I already saved it, so that's okay. I'm going to open from my device, and I always open from my favorites, just because you can open from this little preview screen here, but I find it hard to be able to tell the difference between all the photos, so I would rather open from favorites. So I'm going to go into favorites here, and I'm going to pick, so this is a fine photo of my daughters waiting to go out to the sailboat. They're waiting on the wharf, so I'm going to start with this one, use. And so this is the screen that you start with. I'm going to put my phone down so that you can have a look. So at the top here we have open, that's just where you can open a new photo like I just showed you. We have save, which is where you can save it when you're finished. This little square with a 0 in it, that is that's your stack. And the stack is what they call a a group of changes that you've made to your photo would be in the stack. So every time you use a tool or a filter and save it, it creates a layer in your stacks. And so right now I haven't manipulated this photo at all, so I have 0 stacks. And then this is just some settings that I never use. It just opens up and you can undo, redo, revert, apply last edits, share, open in, and some other things there. I never use that, so that's what that is. And then down here we have a little histogram thing that you can show, but I don't ever use that. And then this is where you find most of your editing tools, is under this little pencil circle. But I'll just show you this. This is Insights, and it just gives you a couple of tutorials and information on different tools and how to use them. And so this is really worth looking through. I'm just going to go back to the editor for now because you can look at those at your own. I have looked at some of them and found them really helpful. It's changed the way that I use the app, so it's definitely worth looking at. This is a really powerful app. It is way more powerful than most of the photo editing apps that I have tried. And it's just as powerful, I think, as an app like Camera Plus, but I find this much more intuitive and easy to use. So this is my go-to photo editor. So I'm going to press the pencil button here, and you see it opens up your tools and your filters. There are 10 tools and there are 12 filters to play with. I'm going to put the phone down so that you can see the whole thing and so that it doesn't get too shaky. I will walk you through what each of these are just to show you what they are, but I'm not going to show you how they all work. Today I'm just going to show you my basic edits that I do almost every time that I play with a photo. So first I'll walk you through what all of these are. So the first one is Tune Image. And when you click on it, it looks like nothing has happened, but the options are hidden inside of the photo. So what you do is you just click anywhere on the photo and move your finger up and down. Up and down helps you is how you select the things. Right now everything is set to 0. So we have brightness, we have contrast, saturation, ambience, highlights, shadows, and warmth. And then once you're on these things, I left it on brightness, for example, now I can move my finger that way to increase the brightness, and I can move it that way to decrease the brightness. And I can go negative. So it goes all the way up to +100 and all the way down to -100. So brightness happens to be one of those tweaks that I almost always do. So I'm going to brighten this right now. I'm going to brighten it to quite a bit, actually. I'm going to brighten it to about that. I'm at, I think it said 52, 50 something, 54. So I'm going to leave it at that. It's nice and bright. If you ever want to see the difference between the last save, like the last time that you said okay to the changes, and what you're doing right now, you just press this little button up at the top there. So this is how my photo looked before, and this is how it looks with the brightness changed. So now I'm also, whenever I change the brightness, I always also change the contrast. I just bump up the contrast a little tiny bit because I find that brightening a photo tends to take all of the blacks and make them a little gray. So I want to make, I don't want that to happen, so I just bumped up the contrast to 20. Then saturation is another thing that I almost always bump up just a teensy little bit. I don't want to go overboard because you can really overdo it and end up with a photo like this that's just way too colorful. These bright colors are starting to bleed. I'm going to come in a little bit closer for you. So these bright colors are starting to bleed, and these trees are looking kind of neon, and it's just not the way that it actually looks in real life. So I mean, that's a fun look if you want to really have a really bright, playful photo. But for most of my family photos that I'm not looking for an artistic look, I'm thinking about bumping up the saturation much, much less. Maybe like around 17 or 20 or so. Okay, so now again, this is showing me the difference between the photo with nothing and the photo with both brightness and contrast and saturation, all three of those things in there. So this is the resulting photo. I'm not going to play with ambience, highlights, shadows, or warmth in this case, but you can play around with all of those. Those are not my standard go-to changes, but I will change them sometimes. I especially sometimes will change the warmth if I'm taking outdoor photos in the wintertime. I like them to be cool, so sometimes I'll bump the warmth down like this. It gives it more of a blue look. And if I'm taking photos at sunset or indoors, if I want it to look cozy and warm, then I'll increase the warmth and give it more of a yellow look like this. That's quite extreme. But in this case, I want it to be just as it is. So I'm going to put the warmth at 0, plus 1 and 0 is pretty much the same. So now that I have all of my tunes that I wanted to do, I did brightness, contrast, and saturation, and then I left the other ones. I'm just going to press the check mark box right down here. I'll have to come out a wee bit, sorry about that. So I'm just going to check the check mark, and that will apply these changes as a single layer to my overall photo. So I'm not going to use, I never use this. This is like an autocorrect, this button right here, and I don't usually like the results. So I'm going to press OK. And now you see that I have a number 1 right here. That means I have 1 layer on in my stack. And my photo has changed accordingly. The details one is another one that I often use. I'm not going to use it on this photo just because this isn't a close-up. I find that the details are more applicable to close-ups where you want to see really nicely defined. I like it for pictures of my cats where I want to see the individual hairs on their paws or in their fur. It's also really great for close-ups of plants. For example, I used it here to define the blades of grass in this photo. And I used it here to define this part of the train. This part right here, before I added there's a lot more added to this than that, but I added that to make this part of the train more detailed. Oh, my low battery, that's okay. I hope I have enough to get through this. So under details, you can change the structure and you can sharpen. And in this case, we're not going to see a whole big difference if we sharpen or change the structure because it's those are not all that applicable to this one. But in those situations I just told you about, it's good to use details. I often use details. That's one of my go-tos. You can crop it in here. I usually wait and crop it in Instagram if it's not already a square, but you can crop it here if you want to. You can rotate it if you want to. If this is good for balancing your horizon line, and so in this case my horizon is already good, but if it wasn't, I would want to make sure that my horizon was horizontal. You can transform it, which involves a little bit of distortion. So horizon perspective, this kind of allows you to kind of tilt it and do all sorts of weird things with your photo. And just by pressing X, I'm not saving any of these changes. So the brush allows you to brush on different tools, and I don't use the brush, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. I've never used it before, so if you're interested in that, just try it out. Selective is really awesome. Selective allows you to select a portion of your photo and only apply edits and tools to that particular area. So let's just say I wanted to leave the background alone, but I wanted to brighten this area around my kids. So I can click and see the B. If I go up, it becomes a C for contrast or an S for saturation. You see the words right beside it right there. So if I want this section around my girls to be brighter, I can brighten just that, and it keeps this other section here, the rest of the photo, all the same as it was before. Now I can change the size of this area. See, the red part is the part that is actually brightened, so I can change whether I want it to affect a big area or a little teeny weeny area. I can also, you know, make that part super saturated and not affect the foliage and the nature part. So that's kind of nice if you wanted to, for example, make your kids' shirts really pop in this photo, but not make the rest of nature look all crazy. That's kind of a nice way to do that. I'm not going to do that with this one, but that's how you would use that. It's really handy for, I've used the selective tool for things like brightening a child's face when they're wearing a baseball hat that casts a shadow, or I've also used it to brighten my cat's face so I can see more of the details. Healing I never use, so I don't know exactly how it works. Vignette puts a vignette that you can decide how big it is, and you can also decide the outer brightness and the inner brightness by using those two different things. So there you go, and there you go. So I'm not going to save those changes. And then there are a whole lot of different kinds of text that you can put on here. They range from very plain, I'm going to pick this up so that you can see a little bit better, from fairly plain things like just fonts, to fonts with different designs, to different badges, and other different kind of layouts and styles as well that you can fully edit and change to your liking. These are really fun. You can also change the opacity of it so that it can be see-through or not see-through, and you can invert it like that, which is kind of cool. And you can change the coloring of your wording as well. So lots of different things to play with when it comes to, and then once you add your text, you can then move it to anywhere you want. Like you can make it little and put it up here, and that way it's not getting in the way of your photo. So really fun text additions there, options. So those are the tools, and as I said, the main tools that I use are Tune, Image, and Details, and I might use Rotate if I need to fix the horizon. So those are the main ones that I use. I don't put a whole lot of text on my photos, but I think I'll be playing with that one a little bit more now. As for the filters, there are a whole bunch of filters, and you could go in and have a look at them all. They all do different things. So I'm just going to walk you through them and show you a tiny bit of what they do. So this one is lens blur. This one is really handy. You can change the shape of your lens blurring to either a band that you can move, or a circle that you can make into an oval. I usually make mine an oval. And you can control so many parts of this. You can control the blur strength by going back and forth when it's on blur strength, and that just affects how much it's blurry on the edges. You can also play with the transition, which is this middle part here, and you can also play around with vignette strength, which darkens the corners and undarkens them. So there's lots of different options there to play with. Glamour Glow is probably one of my very favorite. It's not, I mean, it makes a pretty nice difference even in this photo, which isn't one of the greatest photos to use with this. It just kind of, it blows out some of the white spaces in your photo, and it softens everything, and so that's what I did with this one. This is the photo just out of my phone of the train station, and then this is that same photo. The only difference is I used Glamour Glow. I might have bumped up the brightness a tiny bit before I added Glamour Glow. So that's the difference. And you'll notice things like, see these lights here, how crisp they are. They're just like a soft diffused light on this one. The same thing with that window in the very end of the train station. It's all the more glowy on this side, and it also has a yellow undertone, like a warm yellow tone to it as well compared to that. So that's what the Glamour Glow filter does, and there are different options. One is fairly subtle. Two is they basically get more pronounced as you go, and the fifth one is the most significant, and it also has that yellowy warm undertone to it. It starts off, the default I think is 50%, and you can, or 57, and you can actually make it even stronger, or you can tone it down a little bit if you like. So they're fully customizable. Even the presets are customizable. Tonal contrast gives you a couple of options for contrast. High tones, mid tones. This isn't making a huge difference, although you can kind of see it in the waves. Low tones. This doesn't make a huge difference in this particular photo. And then you've got the option to protect highlights or protect shadows. I don't really play around with that too much, although every once in a while I just try it out, and just the default makes a nice impact and I'll use it. I don't exactly know how it works, but sometimes I like it anyways. The HDR scape is one that I use quite often. I really love it for getting really detailed shots of nature, and also for really dramatic clouds and water shots. So you'll see the difference that it makes on this water shot right here. It just makes the water a nicer color and more detailed, and you can kind of see through it a little bit better here in the area that is see-through. And it also makes the trees look really nice and detailed as well, and it just pops up their color a little bit. This is not true HDR, it's just a filter that mimics HDR, and I really like this. So this is, I'm going to leave this on this one, and you have two options with, well, there are four options with HDR. There's the strong one, which it tends to make a photo look like a painting, like it's so strong it kind of flattens everything out. Then there's the fine one, which is, I've never liked the fine one. I can't figure out a situation in which I'd like to use that. The people one is the one that I almost always use. Even when there's no people in it, I sometimes prefer the people one. It's just a little more toned down HDR effect. And then the nature one is a stronger HDR effect. So for this one, for example, I like the nature HDR one. I like what it does to the trees here. It really pops a lot of the detail. I'll put it back on people, and then I'll put it back on nature. And you'll see that it just kind of lightens the trees enough that you can see more details popping out. I also like what it does to the wharf. But I don't like what it does to the kids. It makes them look like they're paintings instead of photos. So I have a fix for that. I'm going to go ahead and apply the filter that I like the most for the background. I'm going to apply it and say, okay. And even though I don't like what it does to my kids, just hang on. So now it's showing my stacks, that I've got 2 stacks. So I have my initial tune that I did, and then all the other things that I tried out, I didn't save. I pressed the X so that I didn't apply any of those. But this last one, the HDR, I pressed the checkmark box. So it has now applied this second filter. So I have a stack of 2 now. I'm going to go back in and just show you some of the other filters. There's one here called Drama, and it does all sorts of neat things to your photos. Great. I think some of these would be great for taking pictures at Halloween, or really kind of moody pictures. I'm going to press X because I don't want to save that. Grunge adds scrapes and it kind of like a distressed look to your photo, and you can actually take those off and use grunge as just a color filter, and it's kind of complicated, and there is a tutorial on how to do it in the insight section, so you can check that out if you're interested. Grainy film just kind of increases the graininess of your photo, and each of these have like various customizable things that you can add to it. Vintage is one that I often do. It adds these kind of Instagram-ish type of filters. They're kind of colored filters. They're really cute, and you can blur the edges or not blur the edges with this part right here. I'm not going to do that right now. And then there's Retro Luxe, Noir, Black and White, and Frames. Frames are nice because Instagram doesn't have frames anymore, so it's nice to have the option to put a frame on your photo before you run it through Instagram if you want to. So I'll have you check those out if you're interested in those. But I want to show you one of the coolest features. So I'm going to go back to my photo, which is right here. And remember, it has those two effects on it. And I'm going to go, oops. I'm going to go into stacks, and the stacks show me my effects that I have put on this. So this is the original, and this is it tuned. So this is the original, this is it tuned, and then this is it tuned and with HDR scape on it as well. So I'm going to, you can take these off, like you can say, okay, let's get rid of the tuning, let's bring it back to its normal. I can take this out if I press if I press the trash right now, it will untune it, but I still can add the HDR if I want to. Now I'm going to try the undo, discard changes. Yeah, there you go. So I can undo that, and then my tune images comes right back. So that's good to know. I've never done that before. So what I want to show you is a really cool feature is I can actually use the brush feature here in my so I've already put the HDR scape filter on this photo. I'm going to press this button, and what it will do is it will temporarily take it off. So there we go, back to, now it just has the tuned image, and I'm actually going to brush on the HDR scape effect. I'm going to put it where I want it to be, which is everywhere except on the kids. So I'm just going to color in all of that background just like that. And I can be, you don't have to be terribly careful with this. So now I'm going to press check mark, and what it's done is it HDR scaped all of it except for the girls. So the girls still they're still intact. They still look like real people. They don't look like paintings, but the background has this really rich, beautiful detail that I really like in the HDR scape. So I love that about this app, and there are many, many, many more things that I love about it. It's just way too cool, and the customization of it is just incredible. I really love it. So now I have this photo that I absolutely love. It's perfect, and I'm ready to scrapbook it. So I'm going to save it. And when I save, I export it to a JPEG that it just basically creates a copy of the image with permanent changes. That way my original image is still on my camera roll. If I want to use the original image for something else, it's still there. And I have a separate complete copy of it. I never do, you can save it, and that will give you the option to modify it. Like you can go back into the software and go back to making your changes, but I tend to just do all my editing at once. If I ever needed to change it, I would just do it all over again. So I'm going to export it, and it just layers those two things and exports it, and now it is in my camera roll. So now I can leave this software and go to my photo, and there it is. Look at that. And now I can print it up, or I can send it to Instagram, or I can do whatever I want. So this has been Snapseed. I'm just going to show you some of my before and after photos that I've done with it. So this is Nixie, and then this is Nixie with Glamour Glow, just a tiny bit of Glamour Glow. I also added some sharpening, and see how you can see the fluffiness around her. This is my coffee cup at a restaurant, and then this is it just brightened. And I think I might have done Glamour Glow on this one too. This is Chloe. The center one is Chloe. And I loved how she was backlit, and you could see the little hairs around her cute little face. And so this is her just brightened up a little bit, and put, I think I put Glamour Glow on this, but I didn't do the yellowy Glamour Glow. I just put one of the softer Glamour Glows on her, and I still wasn't quite happy with her face. I wanted to see a little bit more of how mottled and messy her face is, so I used that selective tool and just selected her face and lightened it a little bit so that you could see some of the modeling details in her face, like around her nose. See that compared to that. Just subtle difference, but that's what makes her Chloe, is that she's got all those little patches. So here's a photo that looked like it was almost unusable. Like the cats are so dark you can barely see them there. And now I just brightened it, I sharpened it, and I used Glamour Glow on it. And this is what I got. And I think I scrapbooked that photo. This is a photo, I think I already used Glamour Glow on this one. And then this is what it looks like when you add an Instagram filter. I used the Clarendon filter. So this is a photo that looks really cool already. It's nice and bright and sharp, and it looks like a really fun, cool photo. This is what you can do to it when you add HDR scape and brightness and bumped up the saturation a little bit. This is quite extreme, but I think it's a really fun photo. It looks great on a mixed media piece or something that you really want a lot of visual impact for. This is my Jack Skellington mug in my bedroom, very plain photo, but with the press of a button, just adding that Glamour Glow, just softens it and makes it look a little bit prettier. And here's that example that I showed you I had already printed up. So I sharpened the grass in the front, and I added HDR scape. I brightened the whole thing, added sharpness, and then HDR scaped it. And I think I used the Nature HDR scape, and it just brought all those greens out and made the greens and yellows just pop. And here's my last example. These ones right here. Oh, this was, I had already edited that one. That is not what I just did. This is, I added the HDR scape right over the people. So this one is actually not as good as the one that I just did. Then I have the mast. It's a nice photo as it is, but once I add the HDR scape, now this isn't to everybody's taste, but I really like how it shows all the ripples and wrinkles and seam marks in the sail. And here are my daughters on the boat, and here they are with the HDR scape, and increase the brightness a little bit too, I think. Here is my husband, increased the saturation, brightness, and HDR scaped it. Here's my husband, did the same set of 3. I try to use, if I think I might scrapbook the same photo in one layout, I try to use the same filters and tools so that they'll look the same. Unless if they're going to be on a different, like from a completely different perspective. So for example, this one and this one are in the same layout. They both have a yellowy type of hue to them, but because they were differently, they had different problems with them to begin with, I had to use different filters to get those. I used a vintage filter for this one, and I think I just used a different combination of things for this one. So that is just a taste of some of what you can do. This one I really tweaked. It was quite dark, and you can't, I missed the golden moment when you can take a photo at sunset when everything is all golden glowy. And so I recreated that glowiness I did a whole bunch of changes here, and then I topped them all off with an HDR scape. And I was in the mood for HDR scape, so I did this too. And see how it flattens out the house? It makes it look a little bit less real. It looks more like a painting of a house now than it did when it was real. But I thought I'd just show you that too. So that is Snapseed. Check it out. It is free to try. It's free to use. There's no cost at all, and there's no extra add-ons that you have to pay extra money to get the good stuff. It's all completely free as far as I can tell. I hope I'm not wrong about that. I did look it up. So you can go to the App Store or whatever place you get your apps from and give it a try, because I think it's really, really worth figuring out how to use it, because it's really pretty easy once you start playing around with it, and very intuitive, and such an incredibly powerful tool. But if you just want to turn things on and off and not use the sliders, that's fine too. It works in a very basic way as well. So thanks so much for watching, and I think I might be showing a couple more videos about how to use Snapseed in detail. I might talk about how I did this photo in particular and a couple of others. So take care and have a great scrappy week.